Well, it looks like I'm on my own to do this tear down and stoking and rebuilding because Linda is tied up doing some other stuff. So I'm going to do videos and pictures, do some narration, and go through step by step what I'm up to, using my cell phone with an external battery so that I don't lose juice in the middle of it. And I'm going to be using an ultrasonic carburetor and small parts cleaner. And I will put a link in the description of this video for anybody who might want to get the same or similar type of equipment. It's not necessary. I could go out and get the conventional volatile liquid cleaner for carburetors, but I've been wanting to use ultrasonic for a long time and just never really had much of a reason to. And with it, I'm using an ultrasonic part cleaner. It says underneath the fabric with the rubber band, it says car part cleaner, highly concentrated. And what that means is that we add water to the concentrate and it can cut, I read somewhere, up to producing up to 52 gallons of solution. I'm not going to cut it that thin. I'm going to cut it a bit richer, I think. I'm going to see if I can find what others see, what they found works good with different responses, replies, and people's suggestions. But anyway, I'll get this all ready to use, and then I'll come back and start tearing down the carburetor, pretty much part by part. I'm not going to pull it apart to every last little piece because, well, quite frankly, it's in good condition overall. It's just the power valve was leaking. Oh, and overnight, what happened to that power valve cap? Well, as I expected, it is now dry inside because the rest of the liquid gasoline evaporated, and I am betting that quite a bit from inside the fuel bowl evaporated away also. Yep, sure did. But that's okay. That wasn't unexpected. Okay, I'll be back to start walking through the teardown in just a little bit. Found the part where it talks about how concentrated this cleaner is. It cuts as much as 250 parts of water to 1 part of the cleaner. And because this is 32 fluid ounces, so if we take 32 and multiply by the factor that says a cut by, which was the 250, we wind up with, I thought it was 7,500 ounces altogether. Anyway, it's almost 6 gallons of solution. I'm going to cut it a little bit thicker than that after I do some research and see what others find works out best. And then I'll get that all set. Meantime, Linda has come out here, and I might be able to get her to help me do the videotaping from here. So we'll get a better quality result for anyone who might be watching this. Yesterday, when I was working on diagnosing the engine, I had the owner of the Mustang remove the screws for the top of the carburetor. So that's already been done. I did not take it completely off because that would require me to undo the choke linkage at his house, and I didn't want to do that because it's so dark in there. But I already have off the 4 bowl cover screws and a large center stud for the air cleaner that has a hex head that holds down the back side of this lid. So I'm going to start taking off some other parts, and the parts that will be coming off will be this throttle position solenoid. It has a 1/4 inch bolt, little piece of bracket, and a spring I've got to remove. I will be taking off this accelerator pump cover and removing from inside there the gasket and diaphragm and a one-way check valve. I'll be taking off the fuel filter, and I will be also taking off this choke pull-off diaphragm. We do not get a new one of these diaphragms with the rebuild kit. They rarely go bad. And then the choke housing itself I'll be taking off, and I'll be testing it. It's an electric choke. I'll be testing it to see if I have continuity. If so, great. If not, we order a new one. Other than that, the gasket that is on the fuel bowl, it's stuck up inside here. I'll be removing. Inside, I'll be taking off this little retaining clip holding the fuel float assembly, to which the little fuel control needle valve is connected or hanging on, and then the seat comes out with this little gasket. I also have a Venturi stacking here that comes out along with the accelerator pump. It's a drop weight and a check ball. So there's a lot of little things to come off, and I'll start getting the pieces off, and I'll need to get a couple of tools to finish the job, but I gotta keep on moving so you can kind of see what is involved. The first thing I want to do is get this unit off. Okay, there's a small return spring that connects this arm for the accelerator pump down to the bracket that holds the throttle position solenoid in place. And I need that spring to be removed so that when I loosen and take off the retaining bolt for the solenoid bracket, I can get the bracket up out of the way. So I've removed it from the base, its base location. Well, I had removed it. Thought, well, I'm glad I'm going through this slowly. Oh, I see. That's twisted back on itself. I'll see if I can get it off from up here. If I can, I can. If I can't, I'll find another way to do it. Well, that's a real pain. Okay, I'll get this bracket off first. Now, to get that bracket off, I need to get the proper size socket to fit on the little retaining bolt. That's too small. Years ago, I would have known exactly what size to get because I used to rebuild these things all the time. But anymore, I can't remember that well. That was over 40 years ago. Actually, almost 50 years ago. Okay. See if that will do the trick. Almost feels like it's too big. I'll go to the next size down, try again. Make sure that's size I think it is. 9/30 seconds. That sounds a little bit too small. Yeah. 10/30 seconds will be 5/16. Make sure that's what this was. 5/16. Okay, I'll make sure that the socket is on top of the bolt, straight and solid. Okay, there we go. Got it. What I used to do is I had a nut driver that was like a screwdriver with a socket at the end to take these off. It was a lot easier doing that than trying to use, like I'm doing here, a ratchet with an extension and a 5/16 socket. Okay, I think I can get the rest off by hand. I'll try. If I can, I will. If I can't, I'll get that nut driver back off. Yeah, got it. There's that. Okay, I don't know if you can see how that spring is curled, but that's why I couldn't get it off as easy as I thought I might be able to earlier. So I'll go underneath it. I will attempt to go underneath it. And then attempt to remove it from where it's hooked in. There. And it can just hang there. It's not going to go anywhere. I don't know if you can see or not, but at the very top, the spring wire is curled shut, nearly shut. So that's going to stay on. But we don't want this inside any kind of cleaning solution. It's got to stay dry. I could remove the solenoid from the bracket and clean the bracket, and I might do that depending on how well this works with everything else. So that's off. Now, for my next trick, let's see what size this is. 11/32. I think I need 1/4 inch. Oh no, I don't. Those are Phillips or flathead. Never mind. Okay, over here, I have a very long shaft Phillips screwdriver, much longer than I need, but it was convenient, so I'll use it. So what I'll do is I'll turn this, and there is a Phillips screw in the end of the throttle shaft, and I'm going to simply unscrew it. It's not necessarily long, but it's an important piece.
Can we put them in the middle, right?
No, I'm gonna screw it back in here in a moment. Take that off and see if I can find there. This is a slotted hole, and I was able to take it off of the rod. So this one link is sitting out here. So that's a very small piece, so I can't just put it inside this parts basket because it'll just fall to the bottom of the ultrasonic cleaner. So I'll put it to one side, but I don't want to misplace this screw or confuse it with another location for it to be. So I'm going to put it back in, and I'm going to snug it down just a little tiny bit. Just make sure it doesn't escape me later. Next thing I'm going to take off, since I've got this end of the carburetor, is the choke cap. Now, if you look up above, You may or may not see a score mark on here.
Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and mark it myself so I see where it had been pointed to. Then I loosen all 3 retaining screws for the retaining part. It's like a hold down spring. Two. And with those 2 off and this loosened, I can then take that whole assembly off without taking out this 3rd screw completely. And there we go. So before I lose the other 2 screws, I'll put them and this back into the housing snugly but not tight, just so it doesn't fall apart. And I'll put this off to one side.
How about this filter here? Is that soft?
This gasket comes off. We're going to throw that away. We have a new one inside the rebuild kit. There we go. I don't have real good light where I'm at, so I'm going somewhat by feel and somewhat by vision. A little rougher than I thought it would be. The threads don't feel as clean as I would expect them
You're not
to.
going in straight. You're trying to go upward, though. That's better.
Yeah, it's a little bit tight, not cross-threaded. It's just like something in there has a burr or something, but no matter. It's going easy enough where I know I'm not doing any damage or cross-threading. That's my biggest concern when it comes to tightening parts on these carburetors. This is real simple pot metal, if you will. It's not a very high quality steel for taking a tap through threads in for screws. Very easy for it to be damaged. Okay, now at this point, my next trick would be to take off the choke pull-off diaphragm. That's, well, it's supposed to be simply 3 little screws. That doesn't feel like it's really loosening very well. Let me take a closer look at that. I might be able to use a flat tip on that. That looks like it's both flat tip or Phillips. And if that be the case, I prefer to use a flat tip. Yeah. Because they typically get a better bite. Typically. Oh, that's tight. I'll try this other one. Now, this carburetor had been rebuilt up in Canada. Not to say anything bad about Canadian carburetor rebuilders, but my point is that these screws, even the two I did loosen, should not have taken as much effort as I had to give it to loosen. So they were put in pretty tough. So this one I haven't been able to loosen yet. This end are really tight. And I do not want to strip the head of the screw.
There you go. Almost looks like it's partially like someone...
You know what? Could you just pause a moment so we can find some light? My red light is on. I'm not sure if you can see the detail, but this is one of the screws for that choke pull-off diaphragm. It does have a straight slot, but the center looks like it is square, like a square drive. And I don't have many of those. I've got two, and I think they're both too large for that. So I keep using the square slot in those screws to get the other screws off. At least I'll try to. The first two I'll be able to, because they I can loosen. But that other one, it might be a bit of a problem. If I can't get it loosened and then removed, I will go hunt down the square drivers that I have and see if I can get them to work. Now, in a case like this where we have a piece of metal we want to get that's in an obscure area, sometimes getting pliers to get it out isn't ideal, and it's even harder putting it back in place. So what I have, and I've seen them recently in the garage, is I have a magnetic sheath or magnetic slide that can go around the shank of a screwdriver, and the entire shank then becomes magnetic. And the closer I move the magnet down to the tip, the more powerful the magnetic force at that tip. And if the screws are made with any kind of iron, the magnetic force will hold them in place also. So in a few moments, I'm going to go hunt that down, see if I can find it, so I can use it when putting this back together. Otherwise, that's going to be a real problem getting it back here.
We lost the light. Hold on. Oh.
Okay, I found the screwdriver I was looking for. And on the handle, this is identified as being a #1 Robertson bit. If you take a look, it is square in shape. And I took one of the two screws I took off earlier where the flat tip worked and made sure it fit in the center, the square center of this screw, and it does. Now, the flat tip screwdriver worked for the cross cut on these two screws nicely. This one is in really tight. I'm hoping this doesn't strip out. If it does, I'll have to find another way of getting that thing out of there. This being an example of even an easy job that should only take 10 minutes is only one screw away from turning into a 10-hour nightmare. So we'll see if this does the job. It's in there, feels good, and not be stripping. I can feel it. It's not going to work. I had two of these units, different sizes, and they always got in my way when I'd be looking for other screwdrivers. So I finally put these in the rear of the drawer out of the way, and that's where I found this one. But I can't find the other one, which might be slightly larger. I don't know. So even though this is feeling like it's a good size for the slot in the screwdriver, I'm going to try to find one that is even a tighter, more snug fit. Because this, I've got a little bit of room to move around. I'll try using, this is a little bit bigger blade. It might be too big to use. No, that's firm. I'm going to try to use this then to get this out. And I'm just hoping I can get it out without any more fuss or nonsense. The gods are laughing at me. Okay, that's not coming out. So, I've got a few choices. I try to get that screw out by using a pair of channel lock pliers or locking pliers. I might do that, or I drill it off and worry about dealing with it later. I could also leave it in place and simply not clean this top part of the carburetor by dipping it inside the ultrasonic solution. And, you know, I'd be fine with that because, quite frankly, other than being a little discolored and having some residue here, it looks pretty clean. It's not all gummed up. But now comes the question, how do I keep it from getting damaged elsewhere? Well, I think if I were to leave it in place and simply spray this with some spray carburetor cleaner and get it cleaned up the best I can, we're going to be fine. So I'm going to do that. I'll put those other two screws in place. Well, now that I got this off, I'm going to try one more time, because I can see the top of the screw head, and it doesn't look all that damaged. So I'm wondering why this felt like it was slipping. I'll try it again. No, this is jumping out of the slot. Okay, I'll use spray cleaner for this part. Now, this part has a gasket that gets replaced. I'm not going to throw it away immediately because I want to get the correct gasket put back on. Even though there are several gaskets and they're very similar, they're a little different. Like here, I've got a little hole for this part, for the choke pull-off diaphragm. If that's missing, then the choke pull-off diaphragm won't work the way it's supposed to. And believe me, I want this thing to work the way it's supposed to. See what else I got going on. These pieces can hang off because they're for a different kind of carburetor, and this leftover material that will work with them without a problem. Everything else seems to have a place to line up for different vent holes. So I'll hold on to this for a compare other, and I'll put this off to one side.
You can put the screws back in it? You can put the screws back in it?
Yeah, good idea. I might as well. That way I don't have to worry about where they are. Now this screw, if I can get it back in without using the magnets, I will. Otherwise, I'll pause and go get the magnetic tool to help get them in place. And boy, that's close.
Well,
There's a lock washer. There's a screw. And I'll try this again. This time, I'll come in upside down, so I'm not fighting gravity. It's going to be hard for Linda to catch this on film. Oh, maybe I can come in sideways. Oh, the lock washer is still on there. I thought it came off. Okay, one more try before I get the screwdriver magnetizer.
washer fell out. Sorry.
Yeah, I got them both. Okay, I'm gonna stop messing with that. Got it. Okay, I'll go get the magnetic pickup piece, and then we'll try that.
Go.
Now, I bought these on Amazon. They are plastic covered magnets. And on a screwdriver with a Robertson head or a Phillips head, they should work fine. For a flat tip screwdriver, it will be a problem because I can't get the flat head through with the shank. The more of these I can stack, the more magnetic power I have. The closer to the end of the shank, the stronger the magnetic attraction. So I had another unit similar to this, but there were two halves held together by a rubber O-ring, two rubber O-rings, so I could snap them onto a flat tip screwdriver shank and everything would be fine. I don't know what happened to it. Over the years, it disappeared. Now, Linda was nice enough to get that screw back in place, but when she did that, it took away from me the ability to demonstrate how the magnetic shank collars would work. So I'm going to see if I can get it back off. I'm going to see if I can get it back off so I can show how it works. Having it magnetized makes it easier for me to get this apart than I had tried earlier. Just like that holds the screw onto the tip. So I'm going to put the screw in place. It has a lock washer in place that is being held magnetically also. And I'm going to move these up a little bit more to make it a little stronger.
It's going to hit the bar here.
But I can't go too far because I'll hit a little lever bar for the linkage, like Linda just pointed out. And then I will show how much easier it is to put this together using that magnetic collar. Well, it'd be really easy, except this linkage is magnetic. The pot metal is not. Okay, so right there, I'm in. Nothing to it. Much easier to do than what I tried before. Now I'll tighten these two screws down so that they're snug. There's no need to make it too tight. tight enough for these things is tight enough. It has the lock washers to hold the screws under tension enough to keep them from easily backing out because of vibration or anything else. And the vibration that would cause these screws to back out is very minimal on a carburetor. Okay, those are back in place. So I'll just clean this off separately. Okay.
Okay.
So next part of the tear down is going to be taking the fuel float out with a needle and seat assembly. Now, there is a special retaining clip that holds a pivot pin in place. That's a little bit hard to see. See if I can get some light down there. But on your left,
You're blocking it with a light. I can't.
on your left is a wire clip behind the brass seat. And I'm going to go ahead and detach that. And once it's attached, I'll show what it looks like detached. I'm going to try to detach it. Getting in there with such little lighting is difficult. Got it. Okay. So in a moment, you're going to see what I mean by the wire clip. Has a little half round end on the length of it. And we have here a weak spring that is designed to keep a float somewhat, I wouldn't say suspended, but not all the way down. Keeps them from sinking completely. The needle is attached through a little wire hanger on the tang of the float. And this needle has a small rubber compound on the tip of it that goes down inside the brass seat, and as a float comes up, the float puts pressure on this needle and pushes that rubber seat down on the brass inside and keeps gasoline from flowing in until gasoline inside the fuel bowl has been used and the float goes down a little bit. It's a very simple mechanism. Now to get the seat out, I might have to get a bigger screwdriver, but this might work out right here if I'm careful. Yep. Sometimes these have a hex head. Sometimes they're round, you have to use a screwdriver. Depends upon who manufactured the seat. But they are made with a groove cut near the top, which is where that retaining clip goes from the float pin. So this is how it looks, and then there is a gasket. You've got to make sure you don't lose this gasket when you put it together. If it's not in place, I can guarantee you you're going to have an internal fuel leak, and the carburetor is going to run rich because you'll be dumping gasoline in the venturis whether you want it to or not. The rebuild kit comes with a new brass seat, a new gasket, and a new needle with the Viton tip, rubber tip. Viton rubber is resistant to gasoline, including gasoline that has alcohol in it. The old kits didn't have Viton. They resisted gasoline, but they would start coming into problems when alcohol was added to the fuel. But after all these years, I don't think you're going to run into that, but it's good to keep it in mind. Now, when I put this float off to one side, I want to be very careful. I don't want this to have any damage done. This has a surface under that keeps gasoline from getting into the foam inside. If foam gets saturated with gasoline because there's a scratch on the surface, gets heavy and sinks. And the fuel level in the carburetor bowl will come up excessively high and cause flooding problems, excess richness, etc., etc. We don't want that to happen. So I'm going to put this back away from everything else, and I hope I don't end up damaging it. The needle and the seat don't have to stay together, but I'm going to keep them together just in case I need that little hanger wire. There should be a new one in the kit, but just in case I miss it or it's missing, I'll keep this in the blue bowl of parts. Now the next thing I want to take off is the fuel filter. And for that, I use a 15/16 wrench on the hex nut part. If you don't have a wrench 15/16 of an inch, you can use channel lock pliers. Just make sure that the two plier surfaces are as parallel as possible across the flats, so you don't end up rounding that off. Now, I want you to be aware of something. This is a pipe thread interface between the filter and the housing for the carburetor. It is not usually necessary to run this filter down really, really tight, because the way these pipe threads are designed, they should seal with just being in their housing body a little bit, and they seal more as you go in more. The problem I see is folks don't know any better, and they think they have to get this thing run down completely up against the housing body. When they do that, they end up expanding the threads inside the soft housing for the carburetor, and future filters won't tighten up very well. And if they do go in, they'll leak. Well, the way that I would fix that, some kits have a gasket that will fit between this part of the filter and this flat facing. I don't know if that's why they have it, but they have it. On our 1973 Mustang, that happened to our carburetor. So what I did is I found an O-ring. I bought an O-ring kit with Viton rubber, and I found an O-ring that fit properly, snugly on here, and I tightened this down, this face against this face. It squeezed the O-ring enough to cause it to seal without me having to bottom this out. So that's how I resolved that. This might end up being a problem. Now, when to replace these filters? Anytime I would do a tune-up, or about every 12,000 miles, I would replace the filter. Not just the filter, but the rubber fuel line that goes to the steel fuel line that leads to the fuel pump. And the reason I did that is over time, these short little pieces of rubber fuel line start to get hard and brittle and crack and leak. And these fuel lines are very close to the distributor on a Ford engine, the small block V8s and the big block V8s. And if we start getting a lot of fuel dropping down there and vapors get up inside the distributor cap, it would start a fire. I have done a lot of underhood fire jobs because of that. It's simply because no one bothered replacing the fuel line, much less a fuel filter, every once in a while. So for that reason alone, anytime I do a tune-up or rebuild the carburetor, I like to replace the fuel line just to prevent problems. Now, the other thing you can do if you want is see if the fuel filter is blocked or not. The way I do that is I clean off this inlet end really well and I simply blow through. If I get any resistance that tells me the fuel filter is plugging up, this I had almost no resistance, so I can use it again, and I might. But I'm definitely going to replace that fuel line on the automobile itself. So this I will put off nearer the float. Not that it's a delicate piece of equipment, I just don't want to lose it. Next thing I will take off is the accelerator pump cover. I might be able to use that Robertson bit driver for this, we'll see. That'd be kind of cool if I could. Not that I need to, but yep. They must enjoy using these kinds of Robertson head bolts, screws in Canada. I've never seen it used on a carburetor in the United States. Maybe they moved to it over the past 50 years. I don't know. But I'm having a lot of fun using the magnetic tip capability of this Robertson driver. It's kind of cool. Well, that's tight. I'll have to use a flat tip to get that off. And unlike the choke pull off of the top piece, this has to come off. Okay, I got 3 of them off. The 4th one, I'll try using a flat blade screwdriver, which would be able to fit this just fine. And hopefully it will let me get it out without any further grief. And yes, that flat tip is a good size. So I'll get it down here. Try to get the blade inserted in the slot so that it's nice and solid. It's really dark down there, so it's hard for me to see.
Right there, like, nope. There.
There, okay. So, here we go. Got it. Got lucky. Some people might say I make my own luck because I make an effort to do certain things. Now, when I take this cover off, there is a spring inside here, and it is really important that you see how the spring goes on and then comes apart, so that when you put this together, you put the spring in correctly, because if it doesn't go in correctly, the accelerator pump will not work. So there's a small diameter and a large diameter to the spring. The large diameter goes inside, so it doesn't press up against this little orange rubber piece. If you put it in the wrong way, that rubber piece will not pass fuel one way as necessary for the accelerator pump to work. You don't want that. It's bad. Now, in here, you have this little rubber piece. That's a simple one-way valve. There's a new one inside the rebuild kit. The other end of it, you can see down next to my finger, is a small little nub. So to remove this, I grab that little nub and I pull it off, or you can grab the whole thing from over here and pull it off. I'm at a bad angle, but I'll get it. I always do end up getting it. Dang. Got it. Okay, so the one little end broke off, or it might have pulled through. I'll look. I don't see it in the bottom of the fuel bowl, so that tells me that it came off without breaking. When we put the new piece in, that small rubber piece has a longer tail. We put it inside the center hole, use pliers to pull it through, and it snaps off, leaving that little nub in place. But we don't want the tail after because it interferes with the fuel afloat. So we put that off to one side, although we're not going to be using it again. Meanwhile, as I did with other components, I'm going to put these screws back where they came from, just so I don't get them confused.
The cover doesn't go back on it, or no?
I don't need the cover on until we rebuild the carburetor, reassemble it with a new diaphragm. I'll show you that diaphragm in a moment. The old one is stuck inside the cover, but I want to get these back in place first, just so that they're where they belong. And I don't have to get them real tight, just in there enough so I know they're not going to go anywhere. Try not to lose the little lock washers. Yeah, we can buy new ones at a local hardware store, but it's better if you don't lose them, in my opinion. What I don't know is if these screws are metric or SAE. If you end up having to replace one, make sure you get the proper threading. You do not want to strip these out in the body of the carburetor. Now, the actuating arm for the accelerator pump has 4 holes for the rod. This is set to go to the far outside so it produces the least amount of gasoline being used when accelerating or opening up the throttle. If you have any kind of hesitation with the performance of the engine, you can move this rod in one little hole at a time to increase how much gasoline gets squirted down from the accelerator pump circuit. The good news is you can do that. The bad news is if you keep moving this in, every time you move it in, the fuel mileage will decrease, because every time a person steps in the throttle, they're going to be sending more fuel down there than they would have otherwise. And this is one of those things where it's good to have it available, but too much of a good thing can be bad. Now here, for the accelerator pump cover, the diaphragm was stuck on it. And there's a flat side and a side with a center that's raised. This goes to the outside. It rubs up against the part of the actuating arm. and it goes in any one of these 4 different positions. They're all equidistant, nothing magic about that. This gets replaced.
How did you know that that ruptured? Didn't you say that ruptured?
This is not what ruptured.
Oh,
We're
never
getting
mind.
there.
Never mind. Okay.
We're getting there. Another part from the top of the carburetor that we have to get to and take off is what's called the Venturi stack. And there's a center bolt. This is a very special bolt, and I'll show you why in a moment. It's hollow. It has a small deflector plate on there, which is rubberized. This is not replaced on most rebuild kits. I do not soak it in carburetor cleaner. I take some spray carburetor cleaner and spray it off to get any dirt off of it. It has a coating on there that is kind of rubberized, and I don't want to screw that coating up. Now, there's a reason that this is hollow. This is used in conjunction with the accelerator pump. When this diaphragm gets pushed in with this linkage, gasoline goes through a channel and then up through this hollow area, then out through some nozzles up here to squirt into the Venturi opening. If you take a look up here, this is slightly cut in and you see some holes. Those holes are part of the fuel delivery for the accelerator pump. But wait, there's more. We can now take off the Venturi stack. You do not want to do any damage to these pickup tubes. This gets put inside the parts basket to clean. Here, there is a small drop weight. It's not made of ferrous metal, so it's not magnetic. It's like a very light aluminum type metal. It's called a drop weight because it sits down on top of a small steel ball, which is like a check ball. I'm going to roll it out. You might see it roll out on camera.
Maybe.
It goes right down inside that center hole. And then the drop weight goes on top of it after the Venturi cluster is put back in place. There is a gasket for that Venturi cluster. It gets replaced. There's a new one inside the kit, which is good because that one tore. Put this in here so we don't lose it. There's a new check ball in most carburetor rebuild kits, but these little aluminum drop weights I've never seen inside a rebuild kit.
Why are we putting it in here then?
Because it doesn't have to, just in case it's missing. Now there's some gasket material that stayed behind when I pulled it off that it's not unusual to see happen. I have a gasket scraper I'm going to use to scrape all that nice and clean. But before I do that, there's even more. I could leave this choke housing attached to the body of the carburetor and everything would probably be okay because it's real clean. And I don't have a special piston inside here like old units did. They got all stuck and everything. Had to be cleaned up. This isn't that way, but if I can get these 3 bouncing screws off, I'll take it out and I'll make sure it gets clean. Now, in order to do that, there is a linkage piece that connects to the high-speed cam, and I need to remove that in order to get this unit off. And they use a special little E-clip to do that. I don't recall if those E-clips are part of the carburetor rebuild kit or not, but my guess is probably not. So you don't want to lose it. Thank you.
I don't understand why these parts aren't all going into the big thing. You're gonna lose stuff.
Okay, that E-clip is turned 180 degrees from where I really want it, so I'll spin that around if I can. Now, if I end up losing this E-clip while trying to take it apart, they can be purchased at auto parts stores to get a new one. But in my opinion, it's best not to lose it to begin with, which in my case is going to be really, really hard. Let me turn this upside down, see if I can get to the bottom more easily. Yes, I can. A lot more room to work with on the lower clip, I think. There's a couple of different techniques that can be used to remove these clips. Maybe I can get the top one easier. One way is to use a very narrow needle-nose pliers to get in there. Another is to get the outside of the clip and drag it away from the linkage. Sometimes that'll work. Another way is to get a small flat tip screwdriver and get it in between the E-clip and the control rod that is being attached to, and get it to kind of flip away.
Oops, I just lost the camera. If it's still recording that. I'm still recording that. Sorry.
I'm having a really hard time seeing this. There, I got it. It came off. But guess what? I don't know where it is, so I have to get a new one. Unless one comes with the rebuild kit.
Did it fall down low?
It went all the way down. I might find it. Oh, here it is. I found it. They are really, really easy to lose.
Okay.
Okay, so now that I have that off, I'll go ahead and take off the mounting screws.
That one or the one below it?
This, and this.
Okay, not this guy here?
This is the first one. Isn't that what I was going after?
No, you're going over the one above it.
Oh, wait a minute. Not these three. Yeah, the one below it. My mistake. 3 of those are used to hold in place the choke cover retaining clip. Hopefully this Robinson tip will work because the others are being a real pain. Yep. These are long. And if I remember correctly, they're all the same length. Okay, that's done. This little clip is supposed to be an E-clip. Someone replaced it with a hairpin clip. It works. It's for the automatic choke.
Leave it alone.
So we'll be okay with that. That'll be just fine. Now I can take this apart further, taking out this bolt that connects to this metal piece here and keeps this nylon piece in place. And there's a small gasket in here. So I think I'll take that apart also.
I'm gonna cut